Welcome back, party people, to episode 44 season 3 of Where My Killer Tape At. Haha. I am going to spend some time on the Bobby Brown biopic and how it ripped the page out of Straight Outta Compton NWA biopic that we saw a couple years back. We're going to talk about Mac Miller and mental health. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on transphobia and homophobia. We're going to talk a little bit about 90s hip hop. Of course, we're going to bring back the regular segments of health and how to approach women. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump right into it. Word.
Steady, rock, steady, rock, 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 steady, 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 steady. Gangsta, 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 gangsta.
For you profess it, make sure the science is applied. With that who, what, when. Sometimes
I pull up, hop out, air out, made it look sexy. They won't take me out my element. Nah, take me out my element.
This is to my audience, those that listen, used to listen, or listening now. And it's not a confession or anything like that. I'm going to be honest with you, which I've always done. I've never been dishonest with you all, right? I don't know why people say that. I will be honest with you. I've always been honest with my audience because I have a wonderful audience, right? When I set out to do Where My Killer Tape At, I had envisioned that it was going to be a podcast about myself, being, a middle-aged gentleman, right? If you can say that. Actually, I'm a rapscallion and a scoundrel. But I'm a middle-aged man, cis-hetero male, black male on top of that. And I wanted to discuss early hip hop, not early hip hop, but early 90s hip hop music and culture and how that helped shape the rest of my life. Because what I learned is that there's a lot of podcasts that usually they're aimed at millennials and I aimed at people that are middle aged, which is fine. And if they are aimed at the middle aged, they're usually for white males, not for men of color, particularly black men. So that's who I wanted. That's the demographic that I wanted to get. And that's the idea that I wanted to have it. And trust me, I didn't get that demographic. I didn't hit that demographic, but I love my audience. I love y'all, and I'm not gonna. This doesn't mean I'm gonna cancel the show. It doesn't mean I'm gonna change the segments. I'm gonna keep the same format that you've been getting every week for the last 3 seasons. And I just want to introduce this byline because I realized that. Shout out to Berry of Podcast in Color, and she said that you should have a byline, and my byline is an aging b-boy who talks about race, gender, geek shit, and hip-hop culture. So that's going to be my byline from now on. That's how I'm going to open up. That's how I'm going to introduce myself. So, and it's something that I thought about. It took me a while to sit down and pen. Shout out to Stephanie from the Dope Science Show because she kind of helped me shorten it. But that's where I'm coming from. And I'm going to continue to do what I do. I do promise you all more guests for season 3 and upcoming seasons. So I'm going to bring a lot of guests. So stay tuned for that. But thank y'all. For real. So we all know that Mac Miller, a young MC, passed away over the weekend from a drug overdose. And I apologize because I didn't know who he was, but my kids were affected by it. They were like, "Yo, Dad, like Mac Miller passed away." And I know that he had an opportunity to work with some of the artists that I enjoy, and I know he comes from a different generation. But that still doesn't mean that I should ignore his story or his life. But when we have these discussions about drug overdoses, and a lot of young stars, they do end up overdosing on drugs. Like a lot of young people. It's not. I don't think it's a story about celebrities. A lot of young people, right? A lot of young people die from overdoses. I had a few mentees that this happened to. So it's something that's very close to home. And this is outside of talking the opioid epidemic, because if you black and brown United States of America, you know how it is. And I think this is important to discuss when we have these issues, right? But what bothers me is that people always say, if you have an issue, if you're dealing with depression, et cetera, You should seek help. You should talk to someone. You should, don't self-medicate. And I think that's very it's a callous thing to say. I think it's it ignores someone's experience, right? Number one, we should be careful what we say, because you don't know what that person's going through, right? Whatever it is that they're going through, we don't know, right? So it's one of those things where I know people say, oh, well, he was privileged, he made a lot of money, etc., etc., and that doesn't mean anything, for real. I mean, money can make things easier, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be happy, right? But it does make things easier. I'm not going to lie. But I think that we say a lot of people say, a lot of us, I'm going to say, we make these statements, these grandiose generalizing statements that are, number one, condescending. Number two, neglects, people who are drug addicts and neglects their experience and how they cope. But the thing is, the funny part is, you live in the United States of America, you take some sort of drug here or there. That's fact. You know what I mean? What bugs me is that, not bugs me out, but I'm always surprised to learn how many people I know take, medication for mental health illnesses. And I hate to say mental health, right? Health issues, right? Let's say health issues, because we shouldn't separate it from like somebody who can't walk or something, right? There are health issues and they are debilitating and they keep people from functioning. So I think that we neglect that person's experience. We don't know what they're doing. And most of us suffer from health issues. We just haven't been diagnosed. And, it's funny because someone, like you'll see like a celebrity that passes away. And then like a lot of psychologists will look back and say, hey, this person must have suffered from, PTSD, right? Or severe depression. And it was just never diagnosed. And then it was never dealt with. But outside of that, it just bothers me that a lot of us will talk about how people are crazy and they don't know what they're doing. And we actually ostracize and shame people who have those kind of health issues. And then we turn around and expect them to be open and honest about it. And I think really that is hypocritical of us, very hypocritical of us and our society, because we say we want people to get help, but then we shame them. But we say stupid things like, oh, get over it, push through the pain, or get Jesus or something, or pray or something. But, get over it. Stop being a wimp. We have this culture, this toxic masculinity that says that these people today don't know what they're doing and stuff like that. We do it to our veterans especially, right? To the veterans of foreign wars. We do that to them all the time. They come back with PTSD or being shell-shocked, and we ask them, hey, push through the pain. Get over it. And that's our policy. That's not just our reaction and our sentiment. It's also part of our policy. And I think that we do our family and friends, our children, we do them a disservice. We neglect that. And I think these are opportunities for us to educate ourselves when it comes to these kind of health issues. Look, our health industry sucks. It fucking sucks. Let's be real. And that's the main reason why people self-medicate, right? There are people, I think what they say, 68% of bankruptcies are due to medical bills. Not because people don't know how to use money or credit. It's mostly because of medical bills. And that shit, that we have to deal with this. We really have to deal with it as a community and as a nation, and just stop doing these kind of things and really sit down and try to figure that out. And be open. Be open to your peoples, man. Like somebody tells you some stuff, don't treat them like they wild, right? And you know what else we need to stop doing? Stop throwing these mental health illness terms around. Like, oh, it's just person is bipolar. Like, we use that so dismissively, and it's frustrating, and it hurts, man. It really, really hurts, right? We say stuff like, oh, he's oppressive, that's why he's so abusive. Like, we just throw that stuff around like it's not a big deal, man, and we shouldn't be that way. I'm going to leave it at that. Want to know what y'all think? Please definitely hit me up for that.
It's all a game. It's all a game.
Yo, I hope to have this brother on the show real soon. He and I go back to our blogging days. Ooh, he was on blogspot.com. Oh, man, we go back to dumb days, man. Like, woo, man. Let's talk about many years, man. We might as well even say decades. Anyway, he's a fellow geek like me. My man Amadeo 78. On YouTube, he has a channel called Broken Continuity. He talks about comic books. You should definitely check it out. I love the fact that the videos are real short. They're about 2.5 minutes long. And he talks about everything about, he does like these things called one-shots where he talks about particular issues and why you should read them. he asked questions about the power sets of different superheroes and villains, and he actually questions the continuity of a lot of these stories that come out in the modern time. So definitely check him out. I highly recommend it. Broken Continuity on YouTube, and his information will be in the show notes. Word is bond. Get your geek life on.
Lord of mercy, all nights and days and crew. Follow me now, mercy, all nights and days and crew. Follow me now, mercy, all nights and days and crew. Follow me now, mercy, all nights and days and crew. Follow me now.
But dude, let's talk about 90s hip hop, early 90s hip hop music and culture, right? Because I remember coming up, and we was hard, right? We listened to Onyx, Das Effects, you know what I'm saying? NWA, we was hard. We wore baggy jeans, you know, Timberlands, unlaced, 40 belows. We wore hoodies. Everything was like oversized, you know what I mean? If you was a size 32, you wore 40. You know, like you always talked about stomping people out. Some of us even slam dance. It was like really hard, toxic. Just the masculinity was toxic, right? Always talking about beating cats down, which hasn't really changed in hip hop music, right? They still talk about cats getting beat down and shot, but it was like really back then. It was really about being rough, rugged, and raw. Remember MC Light's Roughneck? Want a roughneck? Gotta get a roughneck. Hey, remember that joint? And it was just like everything about being rough, pants sagging. Yes, our pants were sagging back then. Stop fronting, gentlemen. Stop fronting, all you old dads out there. But a lot of that stuff was toxic as fuck. And I know that hip-hop music, like all art, is a reflection of what's going on currently. And so we've always had toxic masculinity, and that's something that really reflected in the music then. It wasn't something that you saw that was so brazen in other genres of music, but it was still there. And the thing about hip-hop music is that a lot of us, we focus on the lyrics. Well, back then we did. I'm not going to lie, and I'm going to talk about Mac Miller in this episode. I didn't know who he was. He was younger generation, of course. You know what I mean? And you know, like us older heads, we don't really pay attention to the new stuff like we should. We should be doing that, especially if we claim to be hip-hop elders and such, right? Anyway, what I wanted to address is that a lot of times when we critique this new generation, and these are our children, these are our babies, right? We always do it in a way that's very homophobic, is very misogynistic, and really it's all basically toxic masculinity, right? We always say, oh, they're wearing skinny jeans, and look at the way they wear their hair and their colors and all that, and we really like trash it. Yeah, I mean, we could talk about mumble rap and say, you know, that the mumbling part is the part we don't understand. And I think that's okay. I think that's an okay critique. But when it comes to everything else, we really like to do it in a way that's really backhanded and homophobic and misogynistic. And also, it's one of those things where, like, you know, we get mad at the young people for not knowing the history of the culture. But quite honestly, you know, two things, right? Number one, the industry don't give a fuck about the history of the music. They don't really give a damn, right? You could watch writers and they say shit and you like, wait a second, that's not the first time they meshed hip hop music with rock and roll. What the fuck is you talking about, right? But that's number one. Number two, though, these are our babies, and we just failed to teach them the history. We really, really did, right? If they don't know who Tribe Called Quest is, if they don't know who Too Short is, right? If they don't know who Queen Latifah is, it's really our fault, man. We really can't knock them for that, because these are, again, all these kids. My oldest is 24, so a lot of these artists that are coming out the same age as my son. You know what I'm saying? So we really got to look at that and really talk about that. So yeah, when we talk about 90s hip hop, we also like to do this thing. You know, we like to be nostalgic about it, and I think that's actually doing it a disservice, right? So we'll say, oh, rappers today are ignorant, but Biggie Smalls, who we consider one of the greatest rappers of all time, he talked about money, clothes, and hoes. I mean, come on, party people. So I just wanted to talk about that real quick, and hopefully I'll do more segments like this. Work. We talked about this in the last episode of Where My Killer Tape At. You know that it's the 20th anniversary of Cowboy Bebop, which, once again, the #1 anime of all time ever. I will fight you in the street for it. To celebrate that, our folks from Her Royal Airship Ashanti and the Midwest Black Speculative Fiction Alliance are going to be celebrating that event on September 29th in Cincinnati, Ohio. All the proceeds will go to Melodic Connections. It's a Cincinnati-based nonprofit that offers music therapy lessons to individuals with special needs. It's going to be at Withrow High School. Again, that's in Cincinnati, Ohio. And the tickets are $25 in advance, $35 at the door. Now, I know a lot of y'all like, oh, snap, what's going to happen? Well, they're going to have a lot of jazz artists from Cincinnati, Columbus, and, of course, Dayton, Gem City. So come through. It's a great event. So these jazz artists are going to be taking music from Cowboy Bebop score, which is actually one of the reasons why I love that anime. For those of you that can't make it, what we're asking you to do is take the Cowboy Bebop challenge and hashtag Cowboy Bebop. And if you could go onto the website, and I'm going to put it in my show notes, you go onto the website and you could actually purchase a ticket and donate it to a local student. I think it's a good way to introduce young people to jazz and also celebrate Cowboy Bebop and, have a chance to talk about, anime with people of color. So we're going to be over there. So come through. If you can, please donate a ticket. Thank you. I was just wondering, man, because I still use the term shook, like shook ones, like the way Mobb Deep used it, right? I just looked up Urban Dictionary and it says you were surprised and shaken up, but suddenly all in a moment. Like, so it's kind of like you get surprised, or actually, I know like Mobb Deep used it in a way to say you were afraid, you had some fear inside you, right? So I still use it. I know a lot of people don't use it, but then again, I'm a 90s cat, and I still use it all the time. And I like to play around and even say, he is shooketh, right? Throw a little bit of Shakespearean in there. But I still use that. I was just wondering if y'all use it or not. I just thought something that I would bring up. And shout out to the late, great Prodigy. Word. Let's talk about the Bobby Brown biopic that BET just put out. Let me just say, before you watch the Bobby Brown one, you should watch the New Edition biopic, right? You should check that out first. And I know that the New Edition one is a 3-parter, and trust me, I know it's on Hulu right now. You should be able to stream it if you have cable or on BET.com. You should be. I don't know about the BET.com stuff, but I know I streamed it, and I know I saw it on Hulu. So you should watch that before you do the Bobby Brown one, because it literally like jumps off. I think the second, because the New Edition one was a 3-parter. The second part, when Bobby Brown is kicked out of the group towards the middle, it kind of takes off from there and shoots off into Bobby Brown's life. So you should really check it out. Anyway, shout out to BET, because these are the kind of things that we've been asking BET to do for like decades, right? These kinds of productions with the big names in it, the big name producers and writers. I think what I love about this is that not only is the production quality really high for the New Edition one, but they use music from that era. So the background, the score is like music from that era, whether it's hip hop or R&B. It's really dope. Anyway, this is gonna be a few parts, but the Bobby Brown story is not as doesn't have the same production quality as the New Edition story. I know there was a lot of hands involved in that one, and that's probably one of the things I appreciate about the Bobby Brown story is they picked some of the same actors that were in it. They used some of the same producers as well. Shout out to Woody McClain, who plays Bobby Brown in the New Edition story as well as the Bobby Brown story, and then shout out to I want to say her name is Gabriel. I can't remember her last name, but she plays Whitney Houston. And at first I was kind of skeptical because she doesn't really look like Whitney Houston, but she plays her really well towards the end. So the Bobby Brown epic story is 2 parts. They're both about 2 hours long. Again, you should check it out. And I'm about to give you my critique about it in a second, how we usually do the good, the bad, and the ugly. Before we get into the good part, my apologies. Gabriel Dennis is her name, and I remember I saw her in Luke Cage. She was bad in Luke Cage. Man, Luke Cage got all the dope sisters in it. But she plays Whitney Houston. The good about Bobby Brown is that I love the first episode because it gets into his music. And I think that's what I loved about like these productions that BET put together for the New Edition story. Bobby Brown, like the music, just they put stuff from that era. You know what I mean? And I just enjoy that a lot. That it brings back a lot of memories. I know oftentimes our memories are tied into sound, right? Sound and scent. So of course, with TV they can't do the smelling part, but they do it in sound. So for a lot of us that came up then, I know I was watching it with my family, and they were like, "Wow, y'all, you get into the music." So I really got into the music. It felt like it was a fellowship, like he was in church or something. So I really liked that the music that they bought from that era, they really brought it back. And I know a lot of these productions, they usually have to get the music cleared, but since New Edition was on board and Bobby Brown was on board, they were able to get a lot of that stuff cleared and played. So I thought that was really dope about it. And there's like what I liked about it is that, and I guess BET is really good at this, is when they reenact the videos, right? So I know in the New Edition story, they reenacted the not My Prerogative, Every Little Step video, which is one of my favorite Bobby Brown videos. But my second favorite Bobby Brown video was My Prerogative, and they do that in the first episode really well. They reenact that entire video, and it was just really dope, the dancing and everything. Another thing I liked about it was Teddy Riley. Like, they brought Teddy Riley in, and they showed how his New Jack Swing, like, influenced a lot of the R&B that came out in the 90s. It really influenced a lot of people. And Teddy Riley, he needs to get his own movie, like, for real. Because he's worked with a lot of greats, like the late, great Heavy D. He's worked with Michael Jackson. He's worked with Janet Jackson. And I mean, like, he's put out some dope stuff. But I like how Bobby Brown was like, I want that sound. And he was able to launch that into his second album and really, like, help Teddy Riley get on. I mean, even though Teddy Riley was dope in his own right, but some of his greatest hits was with Bobby Brown. And I thought that was dope. Again, Gabriel Dennis played a dope Whitney Houston, especially in the second half. And I thought that was just amazing. The dancing. And let me just say this. Woody McClain, man, wherever y'all got him from, he's dope. He was really impressive in both movies, in New Edition story and the Bobby Brown story. I hope to see more of him. And I think the acting was really great. Because I know a lot of times they'll get people who, they just want to get the name recognition. And I think that's what I love about these stories. They got actors who they don't really have a lot of name recognition, and that's a big chance to take. But a lot of times, what they do in these movies, they'll get like a big name actor, and they'll like fall short. And I like that they took a chance with these individuals, and they really stepped up to the plate. So I'm looking more for them. So I think those are the good things I take from this. And it was just really overall, it was just a good experience. And I've been getting to the bad. Now, I guess when they did the Bobby Brown story, they took a page from the NWA story, right? The Straight Outta Compton, right? They took a page straight from out of that, right? Remember, that was produced, the Straight Outta Compton biopic was produced by Dr. Dre and, who else produced it? But Dr. Dre was like the one, and Ice Cube. So, of course, they're going to tell their side of the story. They're going to put in their biases, their points of views. And I think the term that people like to use is liberties. Now, what's funky about these movies, right? Straight Outta Compton and like Bobby Brown and New Edition, is that they're not that. It's not like it took place in the 50s and 60s, right? When you talk about like Motown and stuff like that, right? These are very recent. This happened in the 90s, like 20 years ago, right? So like so 20 some odd, because we could say 25 years, right? Because some of their careers started in like 88, right? But these are recent. The people that, like the people that were there, like the audience, us, the consumers, we were like adults, and some of us were teenagers when these things went down, right? I remember going to see them in concerts. So some of the stories that they touch upon, like for example, like in the Bobby Brown story, they talk about the Diane Sawyer interview, which you can probably go online and look at. Now, they don't actually show the interview in the movie, but they show how, what happens when Bobby Brown shows up before the interview and then what happens after the interview, right? So we kind of know what happened. But again, they take liberties, and Bobby Brown takes a lot of liberties. A good example, and you know, I hate to say liberties because liberties is like saying like, you know, I'm gonna tell my truth because the truth has been hidden for so long, it's been crushed to the earth, you know. But actually, that's not what happens, right? Like now, Bobby Brown, you know, we know that he had an alcohol problem, you know, he was addicted to drugs, and he really like sugarcoats the alcohol stuff. And now the drug stuff he gets into a little bit, but in the second part, it seems like his brother Tommy pulls him out of that, and then like they kind of portray as Whitney as, you know, the one that kind of kept him addicted to drugs, right? It's kind of like no one comes out and say it, but it implies that, right? So I think when they say liberties, that's the bad part. There's a lot of things that happen in here that says, like for example, Bobby Brown tries to portray himself as he was always his loving father, even though there were times when he was like, you take care of the baby. He told his baby mamas that. But I mean, a good example would be, and I know this might be minutia, they show him with just having 4 kids. And we know that that's not true at all. He fathered a lot of children. And again, and this is general knowledge. It's not something that, you know, you have to be on the inside to know. This is general knowledge. And I think they don't touch on that easy. They make Bobby Brown seem more like a victim. And I think we need to be careful when we do those kind of things. So that's the bad that I have from there. Some of the makeup could have been better. You know, like, because it's the 90s. It's not like it's the 60s where everybody had to get afros and stuff like that. It's the 90s. Like when you look at stuff like how they did Babyface, like they made Babyface look ridiculous, and I felt like that was kind of whack. But it's wild how all that went down. But I noticed that the slang. I know again I'm being picky here. Some of the slang they were using was not a slang we used in the 90s, and I thought that was kind of like, you know, I do felt like it shouldn't have been. I think they could have fit everything in 2 hours and 40 minutes. I don't think it could have been 2 2-hour events. I think that was too long. Like for example, in the beginning scene when they showed him being the kid in Boston and seeing his friend get murdered, and then coming back to that actual scene, they could have cut that out. I really don't. There's a lot of things they could have cut out. But other than that, like, you know, like for example, the Janet Jackson thing, like, okay, he was sleeping with Janet Jackson, which we didn't know. They could have like cut that part out because it really didn't have any significance to the whole story. But I think it was just a little bit too long, and they could have kept that. Anyway, the first episode was actually really dope. Like it was like really hype, and then the second one was just like depressing as fuck. And I know, like I said, Bobby Brown chose to live. I'm not judging. He chose to live that kind of lifestyle, and that's why it was so depressing. But again, it made him seem like he was a victim more so than anything else. Now, the ugly part is real ugly. Now, we do know that the media, Whitney Houston's family, they all painted like the idea that Whitney was like this angel and this princess, and, you know, she was clean cut, you know, girl from the burbs of New Jersey, even though she's from Newark. And Bobby Brown was like this thug street cat, dirty, and the whole idea throughout their entire marriage was like he tainted her. And again, there might be some merit in that, you know what I'm saying? Like, but I do feel like we all know that Whitney was wild. You know, she was just wild. And I think in the 80s and the 90s, they try to portray her as this clean cut singer. And man, she has some amazing hits, didn't she? But yeah, they try to create her as this person that had no fault. So I understand they did the same thing in this movie where, you know, Bobby Brown always talked about how, man, the media got me looking messed up. They say that I'm the crazy one, etc., etc. And I think they did a good job of doing it. But again, in the second part, they made Bobby Brown seem like a victim, like Whitney. Like there's a scene where he comes out of jail and he's like, I'm clean. And he gets in the limo with Whitney, and Whitney immediately pulls out some cocaine to snort. And he's like, nah, Whitney, I ain't going out like that, you know. Not saying that didn't happen, right? Not saying that didn't happen. I wasn't there. None of us were there. But I don't know. He seemed like a willing participant in all of that instead of they made it seem like he was dragged in there by Whitney. Whitney was portrayed as someone who was evil and ruthless and conniving. And I know a lot of times, you know, men, when they break up with their wives or their baby mamas or whatever, they always like to portray their exes as crazy and all of that. Even though it is very clear that Bobby Brown, if she was crazy, that it was Bobby Brown that drove her through that, right? He's the one that had all those, getting all those women pregnant, going out, coming home late at night, etc., etc. But they made Whitney seem like she was real evil, and like she manipulated Bobby Brown. And I thought that was really fucked up. I thought that was really ugly. Again, again, you're right. I guess he wrote it from his point of view, but it always made him seem like, again, the second part, it made it seem like, well, I'm a victim of circumstances. Like, this is why I became the way I am. And everybody, it was, and then he kind of like, again, didn't say it was Whitney's fault, but when you come away, if you didn't know who Whitney Houston was, you're going to walk away from that thinking she was evil and manipulative. And I think that's fucked up. Why? Because she's not here to defend herself. And then, again, it's your opinion, how you feel, how everything went down. But I thought that was really messed up. I've left, the second half really left me sour. And it made me really question these kind of things. But overall, I think it's worth watching and, come away with your opinion about it. But other than that, shout out to BET for this dope production. This topic we're going to talk about right now is transphobia. And this was brought up by a good friend of mine who said I should discuss it on the show because it's something that I haven't touched. But I first want to use a definition of homophobia that really changed the way I look at myself. And it helped me realize that I was homophobic on so many levels. This comes from Michael Kimmel. And he is a sociologist. And he edited a reader along with Abby Ferber called Privilege. It's really good. I recommend you get it. It's a couple years old, but it's still relevant today. And a lot of people that discuss privilege and discuss intersectionality write in this book from all walks of life. So I definitely recommend it. Anyway, he talks about that homophobia is the fear that other men will unmask us, emasculate us, reveal to us in the world that we do not measure up and that we are not real men. So in essence, he says that homophobia is the fear of being outed. The reason I wanted to talk about this is because a lot of my friends, a lot of my sister friends will come and tell me that they'll go somewhere and they'll go out and men will say to them, are you actually a woman? Which is mind blowing. And I hear this kind of often. And it's funny because when I talk to my students, we always talk about that. We always talk about what would happen if you was to go out and you would meet a woman and then they reveal to you that they're a trans person. And I say to them, well, if you're initially attracted, and it's funny because this answer always pisses them off. They get really angry. I say that if you're attracted to that person, then you're attracted to that person. You can't help who you're attracted to. That's just plain and simple. So obviously, if you're attracted to that person, then what's wrong? And it's not the fact that they felt that way, that they were duped. That's not the actual problem. The reason why a lot of men react violently to this idea when they meet someone and they find out they're a trans person is that for that second, they were attracted to that person. Some of them wildly so, right? Very wildly attracted to them. And the idea, that fear, that phobia of being outed, of being less than a man, of being considered, quote unquote, less masculine, to being emasculated, of being outed, right? That is the fear that they have. That is the biggest fear, right? Because part of our toxic masculinity is holding on to that patriarchy that for some reason we believe gives us some modicum of power, right? So that's why we play into these ideas. That's why we react violently to that. So it is disturbing that a lot of my sister friends will that someone will say, oh, are you a woman? And here's another thing. Here's the flip side of that. The idea that if you're a trans person that you're considered ugly. Of course, it doesn't meet the standard Eurocentric ideas of beauty, right? So we always, when we talk about certain celebrities or people, we'll say, oh, they look like a trans person. They look like a tranny, right? That's the kind of things that we throw around because we're implying that being trans, that transition is not beautiful, is ugly. And I think that's another thing that we do. And I know that a lot of my sister friends are insulted by that because that's how it's used. And it shouldn't be used that way, right? So I just wanted to touch on that and discuss that, a little bit. And I hope that some of y'all learned some of that lesson about that idea of what kind of phobias that we might have. this health segment, we're gonna talk about how, it's getting cold now, so like you got to switch up your winter gear. And you know what's funny, man? Like, cause I'm so cheap. When it comes to like workout gear, it's funny. You could run up on me, like now, and if you used to train with me 3 years ago, you notice that I have like the same gear on. You'd be like, yo, what's up with that? And I know the thing is, I don't have a lot, but I have like enough for like a whole week, and so I don't really run them down like that. But it's still a whack thing to do. Here's what I say. Here's why you should change up your gear. I know people are like, oh, it's expensive. But actually, if you look around, I know I shop at TJ Maxx. I'm that type of dude. I know like Old Navy, they have sales at a certain point. So you can actually get workout gear real cheap. What I mean by that is like new shorts, new dry fit gear, stuff like that. Anyway, let me just give you a story of how like when I started training capoeira, and we wear these white pants that have no pockets on it. And they're tight at the crotch. When you get a new pair, man, when you put those things on and then you put your cordal, because we wear cords, you don't wear belts. They're like rope cords. Like, man, you feel like you can fly, B. It's crazy. You feel like you can fly. It's like when you take them off and you're like in jeans or you're like in khakis or whatever and you do capoeira. It's not like when you put your abadas on and you just feel like really dope. It just feel like, and people will even tell you, they be like, oh man, you look really great in those, even if you don't feel like you do. So I always use that analogy when you buy new gear. Like some people be like, oh, why should you spend all this money on gear? Because, the thing about being healthy is not just looking good, but it's also feeling good. And one way we feel good is when we put new clothes on. So we get those new sneakers, we get those, those new workout pants or whatever, those yoga pants, whatever we wear, you know what I mean? It makes us feel, a lot better. It makes us feel like we could do more. So I always tell people, invest in some gear. Like every year, buy some new stuff, buy some new sneakers, whatever kind of gear you wear for working out. And I'm gonna tell you, man, you feel like a new person. And I think that's what you need to put you over the top when you need to work out. So this is just an idea. I know it sounds crazy, but it's actually psychology that backs that up. So, when you got new stuff on, you're gonna do more and do better. You just go feel better about yourself. Word.
This is a man's world, but it would mean nothing without. This is a man's world.
Part 3, UBC, zip line McCarthy. Heavy on the list, you blink my ice ring. John Lee Green, yeah, that's small. Part 3, UBC, zip line McCarthy.
Question I got asked about a month ago via DM. It actually got asked 3 times and I didn't respond. Well, I responded and said I was going to do it and I just forgot to do it. I apologize for that. Y'all know who you are. But they asked me like if they was to go to a bar and they see a young woman who they're attracted to, should they buy them a drink? My response to you is you do whatever you want. If that's what you're going to do to break the ice, that's cool. If you're going to buy her drink. What I say to you is, and that's any situation, you buy her drink or whatever, or you cover something for them, it's completely totally up to you. It's on you. You know what I'm saying? There's no yes or no to that. There's no right or wrong. It's however you want to do it. Some people, I've seen people buy drinks for women and it was cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, but my thing to you is don't expect nothing in return. And it's funny because my mother used to always say that to me. My mother was like, don't give a gift to someone if you're prepared to be rejected. You know what I'm saying? She used to be like, if you buy something for somebody and they reject you for whatever reason, don't be mad because if you bought that gift for them to get something back in return, then you have an ulterior motive and that's fucked up. Like if when she meant by ulterior motive, she meant like something bad, something that just benefited you. So if you go out somewhere and you buy somebody a drink, that's really on you. You don't expect nothing in return. If she says to you, hey man, get out my face, it's on you. You decided to buy the drink, it's on you, so don't be mad. At the same time, don't talk to them and because some people, they don't know how to some people don't have any filters. Like if you meet someone, you don't just jump into the sex talk, right? like that's kind of wild. So just keep it simple. But anyway, like I said, if you're gonna buy them a drink, don't expect nothing back in return. Be careful because you might buy them a drink and a man might pop up. Because I'm gonna say this to you right now. I'm not gonna say no to a drink. If a woman walks up to me, and I'm with my partner, and they like, hey, you want a drink? I'm gonna be like, sure. You know what I'm saying? But and at the same time, in my mind, I'm like, you're not expecting nothing in return. You just wanted to buy me a drink for whatever reason. I know that sounds crazy, but I hope that answers that question. Peace. Here we go. I can't end the show without a shout outs. I definitely want to shout out Stephanie of the Dope Sign Show. Check out her website, thedopesignShow.com. I'm going to put it in the show notes. She's going to be doing some stories about black hair, hashtag black hair stories. For those of you that want to submit it, particularly black women of the diaspora, right? Diaspora. I'm going to put the links in there, so if you want to submit your story, you can. She's looking for a lot of them. Shout out to the Barrel House here locally in Dayton, Ohio. A dope bar, a small joint. I mean, they have Wu-Tang Wednesdays. And yes, the RZA has shouted them out. If you have not gone here, if you're in the Dayton, Ohio area or Cincinnati, come through. I'm going to be there this Wednesday with my crew. Definitely shout out to the Levitt Pavilion. Levitt Pavilion has just been newly minted. It just opened up in August. It's a local venue, and it's really nice. And there's two things that I like about it. Number one, that it's they really showcase local and regional artists. So if you're an independent artist, check them out. I'll put their link on the show notes because they're always looking for new programming, and they do free shows, and this is really dope. And the second thing I like about them is that they are their venue is wheelchair accessible. It really is, man. The way they built it, like, man, I think that's dope. Again, I shouldn't give people credit for doing those kind of things because they should have been doing them already. But I really feel like that's just a dope move, and my city is a big part of that. So definitely check that out. And I also want to shout out, to my listeners, man. I get a lot of new listeners all the time that hit me up. I really, really appreciate y'all. Y'all give some dope critiques, and I love it. Thank y'all, because really, for real, if it wasn't for y'all, I wouldn't be doing this. And we out. There you go, party people, episode 44. I appreciate it. And again, like I stated earlier, everything that we discussed on the show, if there's like any links or anything, we're going to go ahead and put it in the show notes. I'm also going to put in there, Bobby Brown, one of his sisters, wrote a rebuttal about the movie. So I'm going to put that in there. Anyway, somebody asked me, if I do panel discussions or I do workshops. And yes, I do. I do have workshops on intersectionality, teaching social justice, and I also talk about comic books, geek stuff, and I can also do stuff on hip hop culture. I am a b-boy, so I can teach beginner b-boy breakdancing classes. I'm definitely available for that. If you want to book me for any of those things, you can hit me up via email, and that's DanTresOmi@gmail.com, DanTresOmi@gmail.com. You could make sure in the subject heading you put bookings, so that way I know where it's coming from. Yes, I still do get a lot of emails, and they're not spam emails either. If you want to hit me up on the Twitters, you can at DanTresOmi, DanTresOmi, or at Omi's Podcast, OMISPODC, and cast, of course. You can find me on Stitcher, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, and on SoundCloud. I really appreciate those who do that. Do me a favor, tell your friends to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. They don't have to listen to my show, just have them subscribe. And finally, if you want to continue the discussion, you can do that on Twitter or actually on Instagram. Just make sure you put the hashtag where my killer tape at, and killer spelled KILLA, KILLA, right? Where my killer tape at. I appreciate y'all and I love y'all. Peace.